Okay, I'm about to reveal the step-by-step process that I use as a stylist to style a bob haircut. This is the exact process that if you were my client, I would actually teach you so that you could address all of the normal concerns that come up with styling a bob at home. Now, if you haven't already checked it out, I did a makeover a couple of weeks ago on an awesome woman named Lori. And that video took an incredible turn I had no idea it would take. I'll make sure if you haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and link that in the description so that you can check it out as well as in the pinned comment. And this is the exact behind the scene kind of video of me explaining her step-by-step how she's going to style her hair at home. There's a bunch of little tricks that I've learned in my 30 years, as well as some stuff that I promise you've never heard before. But either way, sit back and relax and enjoy the walkthrough. Okay, so the process is gonna be, I'm gonna walk you through how you style your hair, but I'm gonna have you do some of it, but there's some specific things that I need to make sure that you do correctly. Again, understanding that you're gonna be doing none of this over the next 6 months, but I wanna give you a little bit of foundation for when you do get home, you'll know what to do. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to add some sort of volumizing. Now I realize that you don't want a lot of volume regardless, right? Like even, just on a day-to-day when you're really styling it, we don't want to see a ton of volume. But we want a little something, and it's not so much to get it big, it's just to give us a little bit of control. And really, anytime we're talking about volume or control, meaning like if you want this to stay back off your face, control, lift, volume, they're created from the same thing, and the same thing is essentially bend. Okay, bend is going to do both of those things for you. So what we want to do first, if we're going to use any product to create any bend or control or volume, we want to make sure that it's an even amount of moisture throughout the hair. So in this case, we've been cutting it, so it's gotten a little bit dry, but you can see it's damp. Like this is towel dried, and then if you let it dry, right, for a while, and that's a little bit too dry for us. So I'm going to go through, and I don't need it dripping wet, but I want to just kind of get the moisture levels more even so that at least when I put the product in, it distributes evenly throughout the hair. My favorite little volumizer brush here. So we'll comb through this just to make sure again that it's all evenly damp. First thing first, you can use either or. Okay, I know that some people think that you need to use these in a specific order. I don't honestly know that there's a big difference. I'm fine either way. So you can either use the volumizer first and then a heat protectant, or heat protectant first and then a volumizer. Today I'm going to be using a volumizer first and then a heat protectant. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna have you put your hand out. I'm gonna have you do this. So that's what we're gonna start out with. Okay, now let that foam up a second, just because it's a mousse. So mousses need that time to kind of reach actual full foam. Okay, now start working that through your hair, just like you normally would. Okay, because we're trying to get this through every hair on your head, you're fine with the way you just applied it. I would typically say though, the one thing you want to pay attention to is try to start back here. Okay. Because most of that product is going to come off when you first hit your head, right? Mm-hmm. And if most of it lands just in the very front, you really want volume back here in the crown. Okay. So start where you want that. But yeah, the second place that you went was right back here. So we did get a good amount of saturation back there. So I'm not very stressed about it. Now, because this is a bob, specifically because this is a bob shape, we don't need a lot of volume in the nape. Okay. Right? And so therefore, if you don't get a lot of product in the nape, you're gonna be okay. And you didn't, just naturally because of the way that you applied it, which worked well for you. But just at home, kind of pay attention. If you don't put product right back here, you're okay. We really wanna get it up through here. Okay. Next thing we're gonna do is spray on a little bit of heat protectant. So you're gonna spray that in, and then we're going to comb that through just to make sure, again, that we're getting good distribution. I, in most cases, try to keep it off of the scalp. So typically what we would do is we'd have you bend over to the side and try to spray it this way so you don't get anything on the scalp, just in case that particular protectant does have an oil base or a silicone base, which a lot of them do. That one does. And it can have a tendency to weigh the roots down a little bit. Not bad, but just something that you want to be mindful of. In your situation, again, we're not trying to get a ton of volume. So a little bit of an oil or something like that minimizes some volume at the roots, I'm not really stressed about. Then the next thing you want to do is comb through your hair just to make sure that you get both of those distributed as equally from roots to the ends. Even if it doesn't get back here, on the other hairs, we still want it roots to ends. So we're just gonna comb it through just to be sure. And just a heads up, I'm gonna make sure that I link all of the products that we use and some of my other favorite stuff in the description below. So if you wanna check that out, it'll be in the description as well as the pinned comment. So you'll be able to see it. Now that you got the product distributed, the next thing you're gonna do is just get your hair dry. And the point of this is really just to get it dry as fast as you possibly can, okay? So in your case, again, even though you don't want a ton of volume, we do wanna start with a little bit more than you ultimately want. And then we're going to actually just let that fall down because it's going to, especially when I take you through the flat iron process of this. But I do want to actually have you take these and I want you to show me how you would typically blow dry your hair. So just give me a rough idea, like what would you do?
Basically you just...
Okay, so here's the first thing that I want to switch with you when you do it at home, okay? So even if you don't use a brush, that's fine. But I want you to tilt your head back over like you did. All right, and instead, I want you to bring this up, and I want you to blow your hair. Even though I know that it seems crazy, the reason that you're tilting your head off is to get these roots off of your scalp.
Okay.
But we still want to direct the airflow down the hair shaft.
Okay.
More than completely up of it, right?
Okay.
So still do this and then just lift that up. If you went all the way upside down, that would be ideal.
Which I typically would at home.
Exactly, yeah. But still try to keep that. It's going to help to smooth some of the texture out as well.
Okay.
Anytime you have air, especially hot air coming out of the blower, that's directed directly at your hair shaft or against it. One, if it's directly at your hair shaft, if you're not moving that around a lot, there's going to be a heat stress that lands right where that's intersecting the hair. That can be a little bit more damaging for the hair. But also, if you're blow drying it up, then you're encouraging more of that frizz that you'll see. And unfortunately, as hormones change and hair texture changes, starts to get a little bit more gray, a lot of times we can see more frizz involved in that as well. So one of the ways that we minimize that is to start from the very beginning, everything that we can do to get that air flowing down the hair shaft to minimize some of that frizz. Okay. The minute we go against it, we're adding it. And so essentially, like once you start getting your hair dry, from the point that's wet to the point that's dry, a lot of the things you do are either enhancing frizz or taking it away, but there's nothing in the middle. It's not just like not doing either or. So if you're not inherently trying to minimize it, you're also inherently adding it. And so I'm basically doing the same thing as if you were going all the way upside down. I'm still blow drying that air down the shaft, or I'm just using this brush to get this up off of the scalp and to kind of control where some of that air is going. Okay? You can also use your hands. It's something we used to call wrapping, right? Just use your hair, basically using your head as a round brush to help smooth it. So you can go literally like this and use your hands to start smoothing out some of that hair, and then you go back to the other side. So you can do that too. And just your hands going through it and pulling it, that can help to smooth it a bit as well. Now here's the bonus. Because we're gonna be flattering it afterward, you can get a little bit more crazy with it because we're going to control the frizz with the flat iron. If you were not going to flat iron it, we again don't have that liberty. But even if we're trying to get it dry faster and not worried about the frizz, we still do want to take into account the potential damage. So we want to still minimize how much we're actually impacting the hair. Now I'm still doing this. I'm still blow drying it down the hair shaft, and I'm moving this around so I'm not leaving it in one spot that's just getting hot, but I'm moving this around a little bit more, and I'm not as concerned about potentially creating frizz because I'm knowing that I'm going to take all of that frizz out with that flat iron. That's what heat does. Even back here, right? When I'm drying from this, I've got the air going, but I'm not drying it from this way doing that. I'm drying it from this way doing that. Right? So no matter what we're doing, even if we're manipulating it a lot, I'm constantly focused on making sure that that air is going down the hair shaft, whatever direction that hair shaft is moving. I'm going to have you put this in your hand real quick and do this for me. Yeah. I just want you to bring your arm back here. This is gonna feel awkward. And I want you just to do this and turn circles, like really fast there, just around your nape. Just that, especially down in here. There you go. Did you see how that felt? Right? So as crazy as it sounds, that it does a really good job of getting your hair just to kind of lathe. If you do that right and we cut it right, you might not even need to use a flat iron back here at all. Now in the very front, you've got that cowlick. You've always been told to dry it one way, not to dry it one way or the other, to go back and forth. And that's exactly what you should do. If you've got a cowlick right through here, anywhere in the front that's bothering you, drying it one way or the other specifically is gonna cause 90% problems, 10% benefit. But if you actually go back and forth with it, it's what we call non-directional, then that's where you're gonna get all the benefit. You're gonna get the cowlick doing whatever you want it to do versus fighting against what it wants to do because you dried it in one direction. So what we do instead is we go this way, back, this way, down. It doesn't mean that you're just going one way or the other way, back and forth. It's you're going back again, off your face, into your face, this way. It's every way, 360, not just back and forth. Does that make sense? Okay, so because your hair does get that kind of volume in the front, right, on that cowlick, which is, I really think a good thing because it's gonna work for us. But I'm gonna play this down a little bit, and I wanna use a round brush just in the very bang area, this little shorter area, to smooth some of those out a little bit. We might still hit with a flat iron afterward, but this is just gonna give me a little bit more control of the kind of bend I'm getting out of it and help to smooth those ends out a little bit. The key is that we're just going to put this in your hair, okay? Just like that, great. And the key is that we're just going to be, go ahead, yeah, you know, perfect. But I'm just gonna just slightly turn just like that, okay? And then you're gonna move them both at the same time. There you go, and backs up, yeah. You see the difference between this and this, right? Even if it's back here, that's a huge difference. This, not so bad for the hair. This, immediately dangerous. Really want to pay attention to that. I take this, and then you just keep on moving it. So you never stop. And then on yours, typically we always say lift this up, because that's how you're gonna get more volume. So if you want volume, that's what you would do. You would lift this up. But yours, because I don't want actually that much volume, I'm actually going to bring it more down, which is gonna help take some of that volume out. And I don't want a lot of bend. I'm just really trying to smooth the ends out a little bit and give it a little bit more control. Okay. You see how that kind of flattened that out a little bit, right? And then I'll let that cool down. And for you, that's going to be more than enough to get control for me. If for some reason you are uncomfortable with using both of those tools because it can be very cumbersome, you can use a blow dry brush. I'll make sure to go ahead and link those in the description as well. I've got some favorites. I've actually done a video that I'll link right over here where you can check that out. Also, if you're going to use those, just pay attention to the fact that they can give your hair a little bit more frizz because you don't have as much control over where that air is going, right? With the blow dryer, you're controlling that air and it's going straight down the hair shaft. With the blow dry brushes, it's coming from inside the brush, so there's a little bit less control there. It's really not a big deal, and if that's the only way you can do it, I'd rather have you use that than not do it at all. Okay, so I'm gonna have you take this flat iron. I'm just gonna start with this piece right here. So I'll have you take this. Now, if you flat iron your hair, do you usually use a comb, a brush, anything, what?
Usually a brush.
Brush? Is this one okay?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Okay, show me what you would typically do. I know, it is so
I don't have
awkward.
enough hands, but I would typically like take this,
Perfect.
brush it straight, and then just iron it.
Okay, so right there, I don't want to put this back in your hair to do it because it's hot, right? But at the very end, you twisted your wrist just a little bit.
Okay.
What I want you to do is actually pretend like this is the iron for us for a second. And what you're gonna do is when you put that in, I want you to actually bring this down, but I want you to lock your wrist here, and I don't want you to actually turn it off. So all you're gonna be doing is this.
Okay.
So what you're really doing is you're gonna put that in and you're just going to draw this really big C right here, but this does not move. The second you move your wrist, you start to add a bunch of curl just at the very bottom. Now, in some cases that's okay, but because of the bob that you're doing, we want that very geometric strong line, and we want it, the flat iron is gonna create that more than anything else can because of the way it smooths hair out. It's gonna create this very strong line, but we don't want that line to come down and then sausage curl under at the bottom, right? So to keep from that, we just want to see this, and that is created just by locking that elbow or locking that wrist and just doing this. It's automatically going to create that. If you put it in, tilt your head over and pull it straight out, it could actually look like it kicks out at the bottom a little bit, and it's actually not going to give you as much of that bend. Now also, the thing that you do that I really like is that you move it at the same pace all the way through. So you don't put it in and go slow, 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 fast over the ends like a lot of people do. You did it slow, and then all the way was the exact same pace. That's a really big deal because it really makes sure that those ends look strong, especially again on these bob shapes. If we want those ends to look healthy and strong and geometric, we got to make sure that we pay attention to them. It's the same kind of thing. The difference back here is that if you want to feel like it's a little bit higher, you actually can put this in and twist a little bit more and get a little bit more bend just behind the ear in this very back here. Okay. Because it doesn't matter if there's too much bend there, you don't see it as much, right? It doesn't translate. In the front, you see this little curl, but in the back, you don't see that, right? So if you feel like that's something you want to do, you can, but you don't need to, because this is going to be cut to bevel in and lay in, so it gives us the amount of curl that we're looking for. I'll take a section, pull it out, comb through it once to make sure the tangles are out. I put this in pretty close to the roots. One pass, same speed, comb through. Or if your flat iron's warm enough for it, and it's a good flat iron, meaning that it's evenly heated along the entire plate, so it's all the same heat, you put it in, you move it at the same pace, you really only need to go through it once and you're gonna get a lot of control out of it and you're gonna get a shine. You also notice that I put that in, went through the section, and then I'm letting it sit. I'm not combing through it right now. So I'm gonna let it sit because there's a little bit of lift right there and I wanna keep that lift. So I don't wanna comb through it while it's cooling down. So I go up the section above it. Same thing. And then I'll let that sit. And in this section, and I'm just kind of building a house. I'm just working my way from the bottom to the top. And then what I might do, and I do this a lot of times on bobs because I want those ends to be so kind of strong. A lot of times I'll go through and just do one fast little pass on a large section, just at the very ends, just to kind of finish them off. It's just kind of like a polishing thing. So I'm gonna give this to you again. Okay, it's gonna feel awkward. I'm gonna have you just grab a section of hair back here. First thing that I would probably do is I would try to comb some of your hair out of the way and get this stuff like right up here so you're only dealing with this area, okay? Grab a section, and all you're gonna do is you're gonna put this in your hair. Yeah, grab a section, put the flat iron in it, and you're gonna twist it towards your neck. There, just like that, yep. Just like this. And so when you comb that down, you might see a little bit of line here. Okay, you can't see it, but there's a little bit of a line here. So if you go a little bit slower, and then don't twist it as fast, just kind of try to make it as fluid as you can.
Okay.
You might take some of that stuff out, but it lays in just fine. So yeah, there you go. If you took a smaller section, it would be easier for you as well. But yeah, there you go. Perfect, just like that. And so that's gonna lay in, and even though it has more bend at the bottom than we typically want, you don't see it because it's laying into your neck, right? So that was perfect. You didn't do it too slow, you didn't do it too fast. It's an even pull. The only thing that I would say is if you want to be really picky about it, you might just take smaller sections.
Okay.
But this hair that's coming from up here sits over that. So you're not going to see if there's a little crease in it, which is all that taking a slower section is really going to help you with at that point. My ideal way for styling a bob, if you're going to do it straight, is to use a flat iron on these side pieces, at least just down here, just to get that really crisp and clean. But in some cases, people want a little bit more volume around the top. So a lot of times what I'll say is do just this part underneath with the flat iron, get it really smooth, and then take a round brush and style all of the other stuff with a round brush and get more bend. Because that bottom is actually done with the flat iron, it's gonna look really strong, but you're still gonna get the lift and bend and volume that a round brush creates without the little bit of extra bend that a round brush will create at that very line. Okay, now before you take off, I actually need your help. Well, really, I need your opinion. So in a lot of my videos, I talk quite a bit about what I do behind the chair. And in a lot of them, I'm actually getting pretty technical as to how I actually go about cutting certain haircuts or texturizing in a certain way so that you as a client have a better understanding of what we as stylists are doing and why we do it. Now, my goal with all of this has always been to give you as much information as you possibly can get so that you can have better communication with your stylist, so ultimately you can get more of what you want with your hair. Now, in my last video where I actually cut my wife's hair a little bit shorter, I received this comment. Commenter seems to be a cosmetology instructor and is not a fan of the fact that I would ever teach you as a client anything about what we do. So my question to you is, am I off base? I'm curious to know what you think. So comment below, let me know. After you're done with that, go ahead and check out this video right there because in that one, I think you're gonna love it and I'll be hanging out over there. So we'll see you there.